don't know what I was doing. Hey, it's Hit Play. What's up? We're Isaac, and then we're also James. Half of us is Isaac, half of us is James. Figure out which half it is, and you don't win anything. This is the Hit Play podcast. We are the Hit Players, as always, once again. I'm going to make it a thing.
You should lean into it.
Merch coming next Friday.
That's a lie.
This week is an exciting week. As always, every week I get to share my thoughts and opinions with you.
Mm-hmm.
But this one's even more exciting because
we are DC shills.
New Batman movie coming out soon. And by soon, I mean today because this releases on Friday. So in honor of the new Batman, we went back and rewatched, quotation marks around rewatched. Some of them we just didn't bother.
I bothered.
Yeah. Shout out to James for going through the debacle that we'll get to that. Anyways.
It's so funny where it's like, would you believe me that Batman isn't my favorite character despite I've seen all the movies and all these comics are mine. I know the most about
them. Yeah, we have 5 James comics of James.
No, those are all the graphic novels. That's including the Detective Comics, the monthly, or it's going to be monthly, but the series I have, the actual ongoing comics I have.
Yeah, so this is not James's favorite character, allegedly.
No. Shout out to Green Arrow.
Anyways, coming back on track. Batman. New Batman movie, Robert Pattinson. We are excited for it. We are going to go watch it day one because A, we beat COVID. No, we didn't. B, movie theaters are back and kicking. And
it's my birthday present to myself.
And it's also James's birthday. Yeah. So happy birthday to James.
Thank you. From the future.
From before your birthday.
Yeah.
As we're recording this.
This is both an early birthday and a belated birthday when it comes out.
Well, we're just broke. I think we just figured out Nolan's new movie.
He's watching this like, that's a pretty good idea right there.
Oh, man. Anyways, so yeah, we watched, we didn't watch the Adam West Batman movies or the television series, though James is going to talk about the TV show's influence.
Yes, they are, in terms of that era of Batman, the super campy style, although in the comics he's always kind of had a more serious edge. There's always been this give and take between the Batman media and the comics themselves. People like to say that the comics are always the biggest influence on the media, but like the portrayal of Batman as they are popular in pop culture comes through the TV show and through the movies, and that will influence the comics, like I'll talk about with the Tim Burton ones. But we didn't watch those because the modern day interpretations of Batman are so far on the other end of the sliding scales of idealism and cynicism from that original Adam West stuff that it's only really worth watching if you kind of just want to see where the character kind of historically began in terms of how he's been interpreted. It is to note that these movies are so old that Bill Finger isn't even credited as co-creating Batman. Yeah. Even though historically, Bob Kane, who is the only credited person for creating Batman
to this day,
right? Bob Kane said, "I have an idea for a character called Batman," and then Bill Finger did everything else. But he was a ghostwriter, so he got no credit up until maybe around the 2000s or so.
Yes, there's actually a documentary on Hulu called Batman and Bill, which.
So that is
it's an interesting documentary. I haven't seen it. I want to though. But
every modern day Batman thing will say created by Bob Kane and co-created by Bill Finger, but these movies do not because he was still uncredited at this time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, why did they elect to go the more campy route with Adam West? The Adam West TV show and movie, and not the dark, because Batman has always been the kind of like middle emo goth middle child, really. Yeah. Of the really just comic books in general.
I mean,
so it's such a weird departure for him to be
it is for Batman, but overall, that's just the general vibe of comics from that era. Anyway, they're Sunday funnies, but in longer form.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
which is how some of the movies were.
Well,
Feels like some of the movies were produced with that thought process.
yeah. Well, what's interesting is I feel like the Tim Burton Batmans and the Joel Schumacher Batmans are very distinct in tone.
Yes, which is I think the one thing I appreciated. But let's just jump into it.
Okay.
The Tim Burton ones, you know them, you love them.
1989.
Michael Keaton is the Dark Knight, plays the Caped Crusader. You guys know all the titles. We're not going to sit here and talk about them.
Batman and Batman Returns.
Batman and Batman Returns.
What were your initial thoughts?
Surprisingly,
Yeah.
I was very entertained. I was more entertained with Returns than I was with Batman. I think a lot of it had to do with I think a lot of it did have to do with Michelle Pfeiffer. Just that character of Selena Kyle. Not seeing her in a latex cat suit. I know what you're going through your mind. Not that, but the actual, duality, dichotomy between her and Batman, and seeing it played out.
You liked their dynamic.
Yeah, it was fun. It was cool.
Mm-hmm.
The Danny DeVito part.
That's one of those things that people like because they like Danny DeVito.
Yeah,
I didn't like the Penguin character at all.
I didn't care for it that much.
Yeah.
But the first Batman, the original with Jack Nicholson,
89.
I enjoyed.
I enjoyed it reservedly.
Yes, I'm not gonna go buy this and put it on my shelf. That is not gonna happen.
What was funny is I was expecting something similar to the Joel Schumacher movies because those are so much more prevalent in people's minds.
Yes, for better or worse.
Mostly for worse.
Mostly for worse.
Whereas I feel like the influence of the Tim Burton ones has kind of been muted a little bit, except for maybe Batman Returns. But
do you think a lot of it has to do with just Tim Burton as what he's done later in his career post? Because this is his second feature movie after Beetlejuice.
I actually think it's because the influence of the Tim Burton movies was so diffused into the comics, as specifically the visuals of Gotham City.
Yes.
The Art Deco style of Gotham City. The comic book artists were like, oh, why didn't we think about that? And then Gotham in the comics immediately became Art Deco, like instantly. And that has just kind of maintained this element in the comics of how Gotham City exists as a setting as opposed to just a background. That is absolutely something from this movie that it doesn't feel like this movie was influential because when you watch it, you're like, well, that's just how everyone portrays Gotham City.
But then you actually look
but
and
then
it's
like well, back in
was doing it before
1989. There you go.
Yeah, if anything, I think Michael Keaton was not, and this is kind of to piggyback off your idea, Michael Keaton isn't the greatest Batman. I don't think so. But he laid a lot of the foundation for what the modern Batman, both in screen, TV, comic, whatever, what it would become. The dark brooding stature, him doing crazy stuff and just the voice itself. It was never thought to be like, just drop your voice a decibel level.
And George Clooney didn't have a different voice. So there you go.
God, I can't wait to rip into that movie. So yeah, I think that was what interested me the most. It's interesting also to note the seeds of trying to portray Bruce Wayne as a more flawed character other than my parents died and I'm seeking vengeance.
Yeah, that's what I think I appreciate about that movie the most is how oftentimes Bruce Wayne and Batman are super separated, particularly in the Nolan movies, whereas in this one it felt like he was just Batman all the time.
Yeah.
There was almost no moments of Bruce Wayne, which is personally why this was one of my favorite portrayals of Bruce Wayne, because
with Michael Keaton.
Yeah, I really liked that element to it. How it's an unspoken rule, but Batman is the real identity and Bruce Wayne is the alter ego.
Yeah,
and that's what I liked about this movie, so that he was, without anyone around, he was just Batman mode. And the second a woman walked by, he would be Bruce Wayne, but then she would leave and he would just be Batman mode. Yeah, and that I really appreciated. at least in my opinion. That being said, though, throughout these two movies, the female characters leave a lot to be desired.
Especially Vicky Vale.
Vicky Vale, she's supposed to be a redhead. That to me is the biggest. No, I'm just joking. She is supposed to be a redhead though.
Yeah, she was.
But they don't really have. Even Michelle Pfeiffer, even Selena Kyle in Batman Returns, I was kind of
Wanting more?
not wanting more. I was just rubbed the wrong way by her kind of psychosexual characterization. Which, to be fair,
That was Catwoman.
that's
Almost
Catwoman.
Catwoman to a degree. Or to a T.
It's my personal bias because I've never liked Catwoman. And it's mostly for that reason.
That's fair.
Yeah. Not to say that there hasn't always been a psychosexual even to Batman or the Joker, because there absolutely is.
Even freaking Spider-Man has one.
There even is. But it's just not. It's more. How do I want to say this? I just didn't like it. I wish she had a little more agency. Selena Kyle, that is. In terms of her motivations. Is really just.
It's a revenge story.
It's just going. I just want to. I don't like Batman, so I'm going to go against Batman. I'm just like,
Well,
is there?
she's going against Batman because he's trying to. She's trying to.
Yeah, you can't even really describe it.
She wants to kill Christopher Walken. By the way, what the hell is Christopher Walken doing in the Batman movie? That surprised me. She's trying to kill Christopher Walken, and why does Batman stop? Why does Batman stop her? Is it just one of those?
Because he loves her.
I think there's more to you.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You pick on that. You
know.
pick up on that on the scenes where they are Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle respectively.
Yeah.
Because he obviously sees a little bit of himself in her. This kind of damaged person who is
show her the good,
seeking larger retribution for a wrong that was done to them.
Yeah.
But I just have never liked Catwoman.
You didn't like the Anne Hathaway version either?
Did she even exist in those movies?
I mean, yeah.
A little bit. But no, I didn't either.
Okay. No, that's fair. You're entitled to your opinion as wrong as it may be.
I am. Yeah. I will own up to that.
No.
People.
No, you're not wrong. I think when I say I enjoyed Michelle Pfeiffer, I think I enjoyed more of her acting versus the actual character of Selena Kyle. Like, it was cool to see Michelle. Like, I think Michelle Pfeiffer did a really good job with the character. It just what the character's kind of one-dimensional to a degree, which, sometimes is a problem that Batman has. It's one of the issues that that I think
Nolan does is probably the worst.
Expands upon. Oh wow. Okay. Awkward.
No, you're good. It's not as bad as Val Kilmer.
Yeah, I went into these movies very, very low, because I had always heard, Nolan,
low expectations.
Batman, he has the best Batman movies, this and that. So I went in with very, very low expectations. Batman kind of exceeded those expectations. The problem with the first Batman is that there's a love story in the middle of a crime fighting, and then there's it does this weird thing where it tries to do like a half-baked origin story for Batman and for the Joker, but we don't really get the screen time to really evolve either of them, really, if we're gonna go like The Dark Knight. And I don't want to, I'm gonna compare it only because it's the only movie that has the Joker on it. But The Dark Knight's just like, hey, there's this crazy guy running around town killing people. No rhyme or reason to it. We're just, how does Batman react to that? Yeah. And I think that works. That could work, at least for the Burton films. Or could have worked, I should say, because past tense. The problem is we also try to stick a love story into it, and also we also try to stick a Batman origin story. And it just, for a 2-hour movie, for the 80s, for Tim Burton,
Well, that's just movie writing
Yeah.
convention. Is your main character will have a love interest, and so they're just sticking that in there because it's just considered the right thing to do. It is not the right thing to do.
It was 100%
It was 100% not the right thing to do. But it makes sense because that's just storytelling convention at the time.
Compounded even worse because she doesn't show up in the next one.
Yeah.
Like if she had showed up in the next one
Mhm.
and it was like Catwoman has Batman's heart, but Bruce Wayne
Has Vicky Vale.
yeah, Vicky Vale and Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
It's like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But she doesn't even show up in the next one, so it's kind of what's the point
Mm-hmm.
to a degree.
Yeah.
Right. Which I don't know if they were thinking that they were gonna have a direct sequel. Which is it even really a direct sequel? Feels more like a chapter.
Yeah.
Almost,
Yeah.
right? Like how comic books are different.
Yeah.
Maybe
It
they're the
definitely
same
feels
character.
like. Well, also keep in mind that this is 1998, or no, 1989 to 1992.
Right.
So it was not a direct sequel. I think it's called Batman Returns because
They
he's
didn't
coming
even know if he was
back,
coming back.
as opposed to, making a second appearance.
Yeah.
On purpose. I think that was intentional.
Yeah.
I think Tim Burton even said that in an interview too, where he was like, I didn't
didn't
know
have
if I was
plans.
going to do another one. So when they came to us with an idea, we
Went with it.
went with it at the time,
Yeah.
which makes sense.
What do you think of Jack Nicholson?
Surprisingly good.
Was this your first time
Which-
seeing this movie, by the way?
This was my first time seeing this
Okay,
movie,
okay.
not my first time seeing any of the Jack Nicholson scenes.
Okay.
I was very familiar with the Have You Ever Danced with the Devil in the Pale Moonlight?
Yeah.
I knew that much. For me, the biggest surprise about his character was just him, the retcon of him being the one to kill Batman's parents, which
That
is
caught me by surprise.
just the thing that occurs in this movie.
That caught me by surprise.
It
That's
is-
for sure.
It is in the comics, that person is an established character,
Yeah.
but it is not the Joker.
I saw the silhouette and I went, is that
Joe Chill.
Is that
that's
Joe
his
Chill?
name, Yeah.
Like, is that? It's like, I've seen Joe Chill.
They're like,
And
why
then
would
he
they
pops out
even
and he
bother?
does the quote, and I'm like, whoa, what the? heck?
Doesn't even look like Jack Nicholson either.
No, not at all. Not at all. Which,
Yeah. What can you do?
1980s screenwriting. That's what
All
that
of the
is.
things about Batman Forever that really impressed me when they cut to little Bruce Wayne as a kid,
Mhm.
and it actually the kid kind of looks like Val Kilmer, and I was like, that's
Yeah.
kind of interesting.
Did they put
really good
Val
casting
Kilmer
there?
in a time machine? Yeah, no, definitely.
No, Jack Nicholson, I actually was very pleased with his performance as the Joker. I think
apparently,
he
his
does-
favorite movie role.
Yeah, understandable.
Also, had I think it's the highest single payday for an
Mhm.
actor ever because he took percentages of the box gross.
He
box
took
office?
top billing plus the box office gross
Yeah.
plus merchandising.
Yeah, $60 million, by the way. In
And
case you guys wanted to know how much it actually was.
something about this movie that those of us young kids, us Gen Zs and
Millennials and
probably
Gen
don't
Ys.
remember or don't know, but this movie was a manufactured summer blockbuster because it was insanely successful, but the advertising for this movie
Yeah.
was inescapable. I think they even had like toys before the trailers
Even the
came
second
out.
one.
Yeah.
The second one too was the same way.
These movies were sold to the general public as
There's stories of posters being ripped off and guards having to watch
Yeah.
buses 24/7 because people would take posters off the buses. This was a phenomenon.
yeah, but it was very much designed to be that way. This wasn't a Dark Knight gets released and then it blows up into this amazing thing. This was like the studio wanted Batman to be. We're gonna advertise literally every
We're
corner
making Batman a
of
big
America. Yeah. So it is understandable why Jack
What-
Nicholson would enjoy getting paid for this movie.
Yeah, right. What I'm trying to think. What other comic book movies were there before this?
Before this,
Because there has to be a reason DC said Batman.
we will let you have
We
Batman.
want Batman to be on the screen. There has to be a reason. There's always a reason when it comes to these, whether it's studios, whether it's an author.
Superman.
Oh,
Superman, which was also a massive blockbuster at its time, so
right.
they had laid the foundation for this could be a marketable success.
This could be a genre. This could be a genre.
Yeah, which I think was important to also the idea of the longevity of this, because there was Superman, and then Superman 2, and then 3, which no one saw by that point. You could make multiple of. You could do one, sell it as a success, and then do multiple of these. So I think that is probably going to be the biggest.
But I'm wondering, did anything come out from Marvel's side of the thing? We should have researched. We're so bad at doing our research.
Marvel, I don't know.
To be fair, this idea just came into my head right now.
Marvel, at that point in time, I have absolutely no idea whether there was not an older Superman movie, or no, there was not an older Spider-Man movie.
Yeah,
I don't believe there was an older X-Men movie.
I just looked up Marvel movies. Marvel movies. Number 4, Batman Begins.
Batman Begins.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't believe so, though.
I don't want cinematic universe. I just want
Marvel movies pre-1980.
I'll put pre-1990. I mean, there's a bunch of older ones. It looks
TV
like,
movies.
Yeah, it looks like a bunch of TV movies. Captain America, Spider-Man's. So it wasn't really anything huge I'm seeing.
No, not at all.
But these were big IPs, though.
Superman.
I mean, these have been. I mean, Batman
yeah,
at the point of its first release was 50 years old. So these things have been in our lives, or I guess I should say, people's lives
for a long time,
decades. I mean, still even to this day. Obviously, judging by the fact that we're talking about it.
So I would say, well, okay, that is the first Batman movie. For Batman Returns, what I would still say Michael Keaton does a good job as Bruce Wayne, although I disliked his relationship with Catwoman in this movie.
Sure. I will say he also, I personally just couldn't see him as Bruce Wayne. I could see him as Batman. I think him in the suit when he's not running around looking like an idiot because he's like this.
When he just like jumps off a building but then falls on the ground.
Yeah. That's another problem I have with these movies is they show
like
Batman
that.
doing a lot of dumb things like running between alleyways and
or just the way they wear the suit where they're just like they full body turn to look at the person.
Yeah. It's like it's the one thing I didn't like about it. Anyway,
that's
one thing I did. It's a minor nitpick.
That's understandable.
It's a minor nitpick. But him in the costume and them doing like the super dramatic 1940s like Casablanca lighting where it's the strip across his eyes.
Understandable.
It's like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And that lays the foundation for everything.
Well,
and also just the one-liners that he says, like, I am Batman.
We're not going to talk about one-liners.
It's like
not until we get to Batman and Robin.
That's if we get there. That seems like it's just Batman's thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would think definitely in terms of its influence in the comics, Batman 89 has a lot of influence. However, I think Batman Returns probably in the general public's consciousness is the more influential movie. I think Danny DeVito's Penguin is now people really like it. Yeah. And I think probably just because of Michelle Pfeiffer as well back then. I think it was a pretty popular movie. From what I can gather, again, I have not been alive for any time period before 1998, but I think Batman Returns was probably the more publicly enjoyed movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree.
Which is to say, Christopher Walken is there. Now, Danny Elfman did the music for both of these movies.
Danny Elfman.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
Among a whole slew of other movies.
Will admit that I didn't really like his score because is Danny Elfman's his way into every piece of music he does.
I'm glad you brought that up. I made a mental note to bring it up, and I should start writing these mental notes. The scores, not great.
Yeah.
They're almost symphonic in terms of like
they're almost
It's definitely a Tim Burton movie where it's like.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
I'm did a bad job of that.
hate like orchestral music, and I don't hate
No.
the idea of them having melodies. I think a lot of movie soundtracks nowadays focus too much on creating atmosphere than they do actually
Making good music.
making good music. Although they're all wonderful composers. However, for the music is almost tonally in opposition to the tone of the movie.
Yeah.
At some points, and that kind of just, as much as I enjoyed that Danny Elfman and I respect him, I in this movie I think tonally it was not a match.
No, not at all.
No.
Especially because Tim Burton is known to be a dark and gloomy director.
Yeah. That being said, though, I think production-wise, the production design in these movies is still absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that portrayal of Gotham. But plot-wise, maybe even really acting-wise, I mean, I will say this. By this point, I am surprised at, even just in this movie, just when Christopher Walken shows up, I'm like, how many people want to be in these Batman movies at this point? Between Danny DeVito, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Christopher Walken, I'm like, and then you get, beyond this, you'll get Uma Thurman, Arnold, freaking Clooney, and Tommy Lee Jones, and I'm like,
Jim Carrey,
yeah,
all actors in their heyday.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, it's a thing. It's a good thing you bring it up because it's a thing that still resonates today. Christian Bale, Michael Caine,
all the Avengers.
What? Oh, you're talking about. I thought we were talking just Batman.
No, I'm just talking about superhero movies in general being ensemble for a who's who of the time period.
It's,
for sure.
There's A, money to be had making these movies, and B, you're gonna be in front of millions of people.
Spend money on the cast to get money by people going to see the cast. Yeah, there you go.
If only it worked that way nowadays. All right, let's move on to the Schumacher.
Yes, Joel Schumacher.
Experiences that are Batman Forever and Batman and Robin.
Now, I'll let you start with Batman Forever, since you
so I made a note
have
that
more opinions
this
on it
one
than I do.
is a one that I had fun with, and I'm standing by that. I did have a lot of fun with this one. This is one of the movies, the mid-afternoon specials that I like to often categorize it. This is literally one of those. I would come home at 4:00 in the afternoon, and it would be on some HBO more than likely, but some other channel had this movie on at some point. So I watched this movie a lot in my life. To me, the reason I like this movie is just Jim Carrey. I love watching Jim Carrey just be Jim Carrey and just do outrageous things. I liked Tommy Lee Jones in the movie. Two-Face as a character, not so much. And I liked Batman and Robin. I don't know what else can you say? Batman and Robin teaming up and fighting bad guys. I thought the scene where they gear up and they like team up at the end and they go off in the boat and then the plane was like the coolest. 10-year-old me was like, this is the coolest thing in the world. I can't believe people are allowed to make this. I thought this was high art. And then Christopher Nolan showed me the true way. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I know it has its flaws. It has its problems. It's not the greatest movie in the world. Looking back on it, I was an idiot 10-year-old kid. But I don't know. It still has a soft spot in my heart. That's for sure.
So, First off,
this one is even more comic booky. It like tunifies Gotham in a way. I don't know if you know what I'm like. It makes it almost like a cartoon, but like the Tim Burton ones were realistic.
The Tim Burton ones were surprisingly very like rated R and mature, which caught me off guard at first because, like I said, I was expecting them to be a little more similar in tone to the Schumacher ones, and then when the Joker just starts killing people, and I'm just like, we're doing this now, 1989. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, and it seems
We're
like they
going
went
there
the
immediately.
180 degrees, and we're just like, let's just make it for kids.
Which was intentional.
Yes.
They
Yes,
very much
100%.
said, Burton, your movies are a little too dark. We want to do something a little more family friendly with
Little
the
more
Schumacher
fun.
ones. Yeah, that was 100% intentional. Although I probably prefer the darker tone, although the Tim Burton ones are not like as serious as the Nolan ones,
Yeah.
I still like that atmosphere a little more than the Schumacher ones.
Yeah, for sure.
That being said, though, I respect Schumacher for going for the campiness, trying to recapture that vibe of the Adam West ones.
Yes.
Visually, I know that the Batman Begins, we talked about how that has a lot of funny moments that are very reminiscent of something a little more campy, but very much visually and even in like the plot and characterization, the Schumacher ones just try their best to recreate that element of the Adam West Batman. So initially, as I started watching Batman Forever, I really enjoyed that element to it. So Jim Carrey.
Here we go. See you guys next week.
Unwatchable, in my opinion.
Really?
Oh yeah, I will stand by that. Jim Carrey probably only has one or two movies that I will actually willingly sit through from this time period.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of them.
Liar, Liar.
I was gonna say one of them is Liar, Liar,
yeah.
right?
Liar, Liar is one of them. But
all right, good.
Not this one.
Good. All right,
We're
I'm a little more.
When he's doing the Edward Nygma stuff, like pre-transformation, I'm like,
you're with
that is an acceptable amount of Jim Carrey.
Sure.
But once he turns into the Riddler, I know they were like, all right, Jim,
do your thing.
We're not going to direct you. Just do your thing.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And that was a mistake, in my opinion. Because like Tommy Lee Jones, I like as an actor, but I know that in this movie, he's just doing it for the paycheck. He's like, yeah I'll laugh maniacally and I'll, wear this stupid costume. Give me my money. With Jim Carrey, I'm like, are you really doing this performance for the comedic integrity of your career as a comedian? No, I did not enjoy Jim Carrey whatsoever in this movie. I'll say this. What I enjoyed about Batman Forever there's two things about this movie I really like. The first is the Robin origin story. I like that they actually went as far as to include that in this movie. Dick Grayson is he's one of my favorite Batman characters, and he's an extremely popular character nowadays, thanks in part to Nightwing when he becomes Nightwing when he leaves Batman. So I really enjoyed that they included that element in in this movie. I also enjoyed Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer?
Yeah.
You liked him?
I did. Yeah.
I think I did
Batman. Too. Which is so funny because I didn't really expect him to be in this movie. But I don't know if you remember this, but the Michael Mann movie Heat was on TV. And then like a few days later, I'm watching Val Kilmer as Batman. And I'm just like, don't know which one of these came first, but one of these was definitely for a let me be I want to do everything.
Let me go get my money.
Yeah, let me get my money. But I didn't mind it. I think so
this is like peak Val Kilmer too, by the way.
Yeah,
this is Tombstone.
Well, it's
Top
peak
Gun,
everyone.
Doc Holliday.
This is peak Jim Carrey in the 90s. Tommy Lee Jones is, I don't know if he had done Men in Black at this point. I think that was in the 2000s, but it was still Tommy Lee Jones. Freaking Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
Val Kilmer. Who else is in this movie, my guy? I mean, so many people show up. Again, it's like a who's who at the top of their career trying to get into this movie. By the way, shout out to Michael Gough for playing Alfred in all four of these movies. Holding it down as
impressive.
Alfred. He does a fantastic job too. He's a really great.
He's a good.
He's a good Alfred.
He's a good Alfred.
He's a good Alfred. There are amazing Alfreds out there. Shout out to Jeremy Irons, in one of my opinion, probably my favorite Alfred. But he's a good one. He's a good one. That being said, though, as much as I like that they included the
Batman. The Robin.
Dick Grayson's origin story. Chris O'Donnell's his acting is fine, but that characterization of Dick Grayson is too 90s jock bully character for my taste. I didn't really enjoy it. A far cry from what Dick Grayson would become, at least in the comics. But yeah, in my opinion, I enjoyed Val Kilmer. I enjoyed the attempt at making something goofy and fun, and I enjoyed the plot a little bit.
Actually. The actual action was actiony.
Yeah,
to a degree. It's not, you know.
These Schumacher movies have a lot of like set pieces in them where I'm just like, there was a freaking scene in Batman and Robin where they escape from Mr. Freeze for the first time, and he's getting chased, I think. No. It's when they escape from him like the third time, and they're driving down this like giant statue.
Yes.
And these two cars drive through building, and I'm like, that doesn't look like models. Doesn't look like CGI either.
Yeah, the absurdity of these movies, I think, are what people could have fun with.
Yeah.
I think one of the issues I think a lot of people have with these movies, it's just a huge tonal change.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and we mentioned that earlier. But it's just that I think that's really why it sours people, is because we had seen what Tim Burton laid the foundation for. And we were like, what is going to be next? Yeah. We're going to get some crazy stuff, man. We're about to get like Batman, freaking, who knows what he's going to do. That's the whole Jim idea. Carrey. What is he going to do? And it's like, let's watch Tommy Lee Jones laugh his face off. Yeah. Maniac.
And then let's just watch Jim Carrey.
And then Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey. Yeah. And I have fun with Jim Carrey, but, you know, I can see why people don't have fun with Jim Carrey.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I also think it's the fact that other than Michael Gough and Jim Gordon, the rest of the cast completely changed. Michael Keaton's gone.
Yeah.
The precedent now is that a new actor, and Val Kilmer does it. He does it well, but he's only there for one movie, and then he's gone. So, yeah, I mean,
2 other directors were considered. Did you know that?
Who? Do you know?
Sam Raimi.
Okay.
And John Campbell McTiernan. Tiernan.
Oh, he did Predator.
Yes.
Okay.
Predator, Die Hard, Hunt for Red October.
Okay. That would have been tonally a lot more similar to those.
Both of those movies would have been very interesting. Mm-hmm. I think they would have been more actiony, but also more.
They would have been tonally much more similar.
Sam Raimi Batman. Now that's got me thinking. I wish I didn't look at that.
LMAO. But that being said, I think the most surprising fact about this movie, and the reason why the tonal shift threw me off so much, is because this movie, all 4 of these movies are one continuity. They tell a continuous story of Batman. Mm-hmm. They consistently reference the Tim Burton ones and like characters and action that happened in the
Which
Tim
is
Burton
weird
ones.
Because he somehow gets 20 years younger, I think.
I know. When Jim
or he at least looks 20 years younger.
When George Clooney is like, "Come on, Alfred, you can't let people like Vicky Vale in here again." And I'm like, You're really going to need this? So going into Batman and Robin, the who's who of Hollywood at this time just explodes.
Literally.
Mm-hmm. With so many different actors. Some of them...
I knew this movie was in for trouble when the character not playing Batman wasn't first build. It was like, as soon as I know the main character isn't the first top build, we're in trouble.
To be fair, Jack Nicholson was top build of a 89 Batman.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Sure. But that was also the first one, so who knew what was going to be successful?
Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. Well, you don't think Arnold deserves the...
No, listen, Arnold, go get your money, okay? I'm not faulting Arnold. I'm just saying, from a production standpoint, if your main character isn't top build, Because even on the poster, he's on the top. Look at
Yeah,
him. He's on the top.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, to me, that screams. When a studio does it, it screams we're just chasing dollar signs and not actually trying to put out a good. I mean, freaking Netflix does this all the time.
Well, that was
Giving $20 million to Ryan Johnson for 3 Knives Out sequels.
Well, it should also be said when you talk about the studio just trying to make money as opposed to just trying to make a good movie. That was definitely the issue with this movie. The production was completely fast-tracked, which just meant you have an idea, we're going to immediately do that. You can't really question anything. There are so many little moments in this movie. It's basically like you have this amount of time to shoot every day. You can't go over that. And there are so many moments. Two of my favorite. Well, okay, first off, the amount of CG in this movie is more than the other ones put together.
And it's god-awful CG.
Oh, yeah. It's almost like unrendered.
I could go make CG look like that right now in Adobe. I'll probably do it right now. No, I'm just kidding. It'll take too much time.
An amazing moment in this movie. To me, there's a moment in this movie, a single shot, that represents this entire movie. When Robin, Chris O'Donnell, is fighting Poison Ivy, and he gets thrown into a thing of water, a little like puddle of water, and he gasps for breath, and then he goes back underwater. And it is a shot of him going up for breath, and then it is reversed. Like in Final Cut, they just copy, paste, flip.
I think I saw that shot. I think I remember that shot.
I'm like watching that, and I'm like, that is so obvious. Did they not think anyone would catch that? That it's literally just the same shot, but reversed.
How far did you get in this movie before you realized this movie's actually as bad as
people say it is?
Say it is? Because you see, by the way, it has a 3 point something on IMDb. It's got like a 20 something on Metacritic, so it's tanked.
Here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. I did my research ahead of time. First off, I have known about this movie since
I think everybody has.
could have access
it's the
to YouTube.
movie that killed Batman
for years
until
Batman Begins.
Until Chris, I talked to him like we're best friends. Until Nolan came along.
So I've known that this movie is just like bad. I think after Joel Schumacher died, I started seeing videos about like I remember seeing a video that was Batman and Robin is a misunderstood masterpiece. And when I went to do my research before watching this, I was like, okay. And then I watched it. I was like, masterpiece, no, but misunderstood, yes. I think Schumacher's attempt to recreate the campy, like a 90s campy version of what was campy in the 60s, but doing that in the 90s without like necessarily copying and pasting what could be campy in the 60s. That once I understood that and then I started watching the movie, I was like, I see it. I get it. I see what he was trying to do. I see that he probably didn't have the time to do it, but he absolutely had the budget to.
I think he just went too far.
I think the issue is Mr. Freeze is just not a compelling villain, just as a character.
That too.
Just across the board. Doesn't matter who you cast, doesn't matter what story you write. A guy who just wants to freeze stuff, just turn the heater on. Anyway. As if it's that easy.
Oh, God.
That's like when people are like, come on, Batman, just shoot them. Just kill the Joker. It's that easy.
Oh, my God.
Uma Thurman should have been told, hey,
don't make this
don't
movie.
do this. Don't act this way.
I mean,
she's basically Jim Carrey 2.0 in this movie.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, she's a little out there. She's definitely a little out there, that's for sure.
I think given time, this movie could have been just as good as Batman Forever. And that's knowing that Batman Forever is not a very good movie. But I think given enough time, it could have been just as enjoyable as a fun little visual thing that you watch knowing it sucks. Whereas when you watch what we have, it's just terrible.
Yeah. There's definitely a fine line between too campy and physical cringe.
Yeah.
Like when Robin says his first line, I want the car. Chicks dig the car.
Yeah. I was like,
God, here we go. That's
or when Mr. Freeze goes, "We'll kill the dinosaurs, the Ice Age." I'm like, what? No, it did not.
I was like,
my
there's
Mr. Freeze, did you go to the American public education system like everybody else? You know that the meteor killed the dinosaurs.
It was
But yeah. Okay.
I think another issue.
Yeah.
Did they screen test anybody ahead of time? Other than Chris O'Donnell, because obviously, and you know,
Yeah. The
our
people
boy
who are,
Alfred,
in
because
and probably
they-
George Clooney too.
and because they're
Mm-hmm.
no, there's no way in hell they put George Clooney in makeup in a costume and said, "Yeah, this is our Batman." No way. Are you kidding me?
You know that he has since apologized for this movie?
He refunds people who say they've seen it. Did you know that?
Really?
He'll just slide him a 20.
I thought he just apologized.
No, he
but
slides
that's
them a 20.
hilarious. That's hilarious. He refunds them.
At least there was an interview or something I read that said that. I don't know how recent this is. I don't know if he still does it.
That's
So
amazing.
don't track down George Clooney looking for $20.
Well, you'd have to prove you've seen it at that point, but yeah.
You think he just is like, show me your pay stub from 1998
Yeah.
or whenever this movie came. I
1997.
don't even know when this movie came out.
1997.
1997. Show me your pay stub from 1997. But that's my thing is like none of these people look good in their costumes. None of their costumes look good. The freaking bat
Yeah.
nipples, the obviously protruding buttocks from Batman and Robin.
That's one of those things. So
It's
what's
like-
funny?
Did we do any hair and makeup or like
Yeah.
anything that
Yeah.
was
That's part of it being fast tracked. They probably had the
no,
time to
yeah.
produce like 2 versions of each
100%.
costume.
100%?
And that was just what they were left with. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bat suit and the Robin suit are still leftovers from the Val Kilmer
Wouldn't doubt it.
or
No, yeah,
Kimmler.
just repurposed.
Yeah, just repurposed. They probably didn't even make new ones.
Yeah.
Whereas the Mr. Freeze suit was super expensive to make. And
I mean, it looks
doesn't
cheap.
look, it looks cheap, but it doesn't look like horrible.
yeah.
At the very least. Poison Ivy's is just Poison Ivy is a fantastic example of a character who if you put Poison Ivy in the movie now, CGI would allow you to do so many things with that.
Yeah.
But back then it's just kind of pathetic. Like I understand why they took away all of her plant making powers and said just blow a kiss at people. That's your super villain power.
But
It's
now
understandable.
it's
now
like-
you could do more
now you
with
can
it.
just, like,
Yeah, you
shoot
can
vines,
freaking. You're basically
freaking-
Spider-Man at that point,
basically
just with plants.
Spider-Man. Just make her the blue people from Avatar,
Yeah,
but like green.
but not Avatar.
That would be her powers,
Yeah.
more or less.
hmm She's like a water bender, but with plants. Better Avatar.
Alicia Silverstone as Batgirl. This is peak Alicia Silverstone. This is like I think this is right before Clueless or right after Clueless, if I remember correctly.
So
This is when she's a heartthrob.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. Batgirl is one of those characters who I always wanted to
After
like,
Clueless, by the way.
but there's so many different versions of Batgirl, like the original identity. Like in this movie, she's related to Alfred,
Mm-hmm.
but that I thought was okay. Honestly, full disclosure, I don't know whether that character is based on a character in the comics or not.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, the only Batgirl I have ever cared for is the Barbara Gordon.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But even then, depending on what point in time in comics this is, it's post Killing Joke, so Barbara Gordon is Oracle, not Batgirl. So
Just
whoever
more or less,
replaced
yeah.
her. I don't know that era enough to say whether it's like good or not. In terms of her as an actress playing this character, she basically does as well as everybody else, I'd say.
She's Barbara Wilson.
Barbara Wilson. Okay. Yeah, it's
Because
Uncle
they call
Al-
her Barbara, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, what can you
Weird.
do?
Yeah, it says it's an original character.
How is she related? Oh, it's original character?
This Batgirl's not related, or this Batgirl's not related to Commissioner Gordon.
Oh, okay. So it's probably just a
So I wonder,
comic
it
version
probably
of her,
is
yeah.
like some
I wouldn't doubt that.
comic version.
The only thing I didn't like is that she's related to Alfred and she doesn't have a British accent. What's up with that?
True. That's a
Yeah.
good point. That's a good point.
No, people have opinions on this movie before they even go into it. What can you say? You can't do or change anything about that. So, yeah.
I hated George Clooney. I don't like George Clooney.
I didn't enjoy
it, and
that.
I hated George Clooney.
Okay.
I think it's kind of an insult to both film a TV show and a big IP like this.
So
and
she
to not
is
even
a-
put, he doesn't even put effort into actually playing Batman.
So
Like, he talks in the same voice. He moves around the same way. There's like no clear distinction. Like
That
every
was
other
my
Batman,
biggest-
Bruce Wayne
yeah.
has a distinction. There's a clear distinction between
Mm-hmm.
when they're having the mask
yeah.
of Bruce Wayne and when they're wearing their mask of Batman. There's
Yeah.
a very clear distinction.
Well, here's my other issue too: is that like with Michael Keaton, that's what I liked about him was that there was almost no
Yes.
distinction. But with the George Clooney, I just think his portrayal of Batman is just not brooding enough.
Well, I think it works for Michael Keaton because this is the first time we've seen Batman, so there's nothing to base that off.
Yeah. Well, the tone
And also just
Yeah.
the way the movie is, and this is obviously a more chiseled, or we don't know if this is a chiseled guy. We're led to believe this is, he's relatively new because
Yeah.
they're still trying to figure. They don't even know his name.
there's no trauma
Yeah,
in George
there's
Clooney's
no,
Batman.
There's no, there's no depth.
Yeah.
Anything. There's not. It's just flat.
Okay, so in the time that you were talking, Barbara Wilson is a movie-only character,
That
and
makes
she
sense.
appears again in the Lego Batman as well,
Interesting. Interesting.
voiced by Rosario Dawson.
Yeah. So this movie killed. I remember that actually. Now that I think about it.
It killed
So
internationally.
this movie killed Batman on the screen for 11 years until a young British man came along and saved the day, and all was right with the world again.
We already talked about these
But we've
movies.
already talked about these movies, so in relation to now that you've seen the entire series, more or less,
All four of these movies.
in comparison to the Nolan, well, should we talk about Zack Snyder?
Yeah.
I feel like we should talk about. All right, let's talk about Zack Snyder.
We'll just
first.
talk about all of them,
Um,
except for Adam West, but we all know Adam West, Batman.
which one's first? Batman versus Superman.
Mm-hmm.
You love this movie.
I unironically do. Every
James
one of my
loves this
friends
movie.
has made fun of me
It,
for enjoying
To
Batman.
me,
versus
is
Superman.
okay. I think there's a lot of problems.
No, it's absolutely okay.
There's a lot of problems I had with the actual
Martha.
marketing of the movie, the actual premise of the movie. The
Don't
fact
worry.
that
Don't
DC
worry. I'm not a hypocrite. I hated George Clooney in Batman Forever. I hate Jesse Eisenberg in Batman versus Superman.
To me, the problem with those movies were, at least with Batman vs Superman and a little bit of Justice League, is a lot of behind the scenes stuff and a lot of production of the movies. The
Yeah.
actual movie itself, at face value, is whatever.
Yeah.
I don't particularly lean one way or the other.
We just need the Snyder cut.
It's just, I don't believe you can build. They tried to fast track a universe to catch up with Marvel, and it bit them in the ass in so many ways.
Absolutely.
There's no characterization to build off of with Batman, which I can be persuaded to enjoy. I think it would have been cool to have at least one solo movie before.
Oh yeah,
this
absolutely.
iteration of
Especially
Ben Affleck
in my opinion, that would have been so
appears.
cool because first off, we got Man of Steel before Batman vs
Yes.
Superman, so we knew Henry Cavill and his portrayal of Superman, which we both enjoy. Whether I know that there are people, especially comic book fans,
Very
have
much
issues
so.
with
I
those
do enjoy
movies.
that movie.
I enjoy Ben Affleck's Batman, unironically. I think I like his portrayal of how he also has that kind of similar to Michael Keaton, where his Batman and his Bruce Wayne are basically one and the same, which I enjoy how he... That idea of Batman is the identity, Bruce Wayne is the alter ego, is at play in the Michael Keaton and the Ben Affleck one a bit more than it is in the other ones, in my opinion. I think For the Joel Schumacher ones, it's just whatever the hell they decided to be at that time. For the Nolan ones, I think he delineates between the two, which is nice. It's understandable why he would do that. That's just not the kind of general portrayal that I personally.
Sure.
For the most part, for me, if you're telling a Batman story, I don't really care about the Playboy billionaire Bruce Wayne side of things. I just want, even when he's Bruce Wayne, I like to see him in Batman mode personally. That's just me. Again, I like Jeremy Irons. He's one of my favorite Alfreds because he does a younger, cooler, hipper version. I almost said it. It's honestly a little similar to the notoriously horrible comic book All-Star Batman and Robin, but the Alfred in that one is like a buff ex-soldier who just
cover for this.
There's a reason I don't own this book, despite the fact that it's written by the same guy who wrote. Oh no, the art's really good.
Yeah,
the art is amazing.
That looks good.
But the storytelling is the equivalent. This is the. Oh, where is it? Oh yeah, that's a super famous line. I'm the goddamn Batman. Once he wrote that down on the page. He wrote that, read that.
Wow.
And he didn't throw it away. He kept that.
Yeah, that's rough.
So yeah, that's rough, buddy. Besides the point.
Yeah, I actually really do like this portrayal, at least in Batman versus Superman. Justice League, he kind of get away from that. It's more like funny, snarky. What's your superpower? I'm rich. Like, oh, okay. Yeah. I see what you're trying to do. Like, they try to marvelize their movies to a degree where there's always one-liners, and Batman is giving a one-liner, and it's.
I hate that element of the movies and the comics, like
the one-liners.
The one-liner, even in the comics, my least favorite characters, my least favorite writers. I mean, even though there are writers who are very respectable, who have done a lot for the industry, but they write that way, and I just don't enjoy it. There are some writers who are not good people. Don't shout out. Joss Whedon, you know who you are. He writes that way. He's probably the biggest offender of that, and he is not a good person. So.
Shout out Joss Whedon.
No, don't shout out him.
I shouted him out anyways.
You shout him out. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so there you go. But
shout him out for Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Everything else he's done. No. Behind the scenes. But like that element, I detest.
Yeah.
In my
that's fair.
Honest opinion.
It's kind of sad we're not. Well, I don't know if it's sad. I don't really particularly care what way for it. And there goes the camera. Nice. So camera's dead. So now we're just listening.
Now we're doing an audio podcast.
That sucks. I charged it too.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Have we been talking?
It's been a while because we haven't talked this long in a while.
Wow. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. Anyway, so let's wrap this up. The Batman. What are your hopes for Robert Pattinson?
Well, let's go through each of them. Let's rank them.
Okay, let's rank them.
However we do this.
All right.
And then let's just do it. All right. Batman.
I'd put it in A's. I say it's A tier.
I'd put it in B.
Yeah. Batman Returns.
I would put that one in the A.
I'd put that one in the B. Batman Forever.
Wow, can't you tell that me and James have different movie tastes? Batman Forever. For the pure enjoyment and nostalgia, it's gonna go in the C+.
I was gonna say like a low B.
Yeah.
C plus, B minus.
Yeah, I would put it in one of those two. There's a lot to there, but
Batman and Robin.
That's bottom of the barrel.
It's C.
Like,
I'm still gonna give credit where credit's due.
Like,
there are still
the
campiness of that movie that they just leaned into that enough. I can respect.
But it's just bad.
It's still very bad, but I'm still gonna give it a C.
Like, there's a way to do good. Like Power Rangers, that's a good way to do campy. It's campy, but it's fun.
My heart tells me C, so I'm putting it in C.
This movie hurts to watch. The Nolan movies. We've done it before. We'll do it again. Batman Begins A.
Batman Begins A. Dark
Knight S.
B minus. D plus. Too one-dimensional.
The Dark Knight S tier for both of us. I
Yes, yeah, it's
think.
a good
And then
movie.
The Dark Knight
It's at least
Rises was like a B minus for
yeah,
me.
it was a B.
B minus for you, I
Mhm.
think as well.
Batman versus Superman.
vs.
I give
Superman.
it a B.
At face value, I give it a B.
Mhm.
I'm feeling a light B.
Okay.
Why?
Justice
And
League.
Justice League's a
You have seen. I have not seen.
Effing F as well. It's
Okay.
Justice League is rough.
We
I'm
have
going
not
off of
seen
the
this-
theatrical version.
We have not
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
the Snyder cut.
Going off the theatrical version, not the Snyder cut,
Alright.
but it's rough.
So
Anyways,
taking all the elements that you like and dislike from all of those movies, what do you want to see out of Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson, and what do you hope they run in the other direction from? I'll start.
yeah, you
Catwoman is in this movie, and it seems as though the portrayal of Catwoman is a little closer to the Frank Miller year one Catwoman than the Catwoman a la freaking what's it called? Batman Returns and Long Halloween. And I prefer that version of Catwoman a little bit more, in my opinion. So I'm hoping that although in the comic she is there for like maybe, she's only there for like 2 issues, I think, and she barely even shows up. But nevertheless, just the beginning of her characterization is interesting enough. And what was funny too is that in year one she's a prostitute, and DC was like, "Oh, these books are pretty influential, but we can't market that. Let's just turn her into just some
Yeah.
the psychosexual that we know today."
Yeah.
So I kind of prefer that that the humble beginnings as opposed to the jewelry thief kind of.
Yeah, it's
in my
interesting
opinion.
because in every iteration that we've seen of Batman and Catwoman as either counterparts or whatever else you can call them, it always feels like they're equals.
Mm.
And in this,
Yeah.
at least we're basing this all off the trailer, so don't come at us at 11:59 p.m. in the comments Friday being like, "Oh, well, actually,
Well,
it's like,
actually,
we haven't seen
It's
the
like,
movie yet."
whoa, we're in the theater right
Yeah,
now.
We're in the theater right now, so relax. It feels like Batman is kind of like, I don't want to say alpha in terms of being like, because I just don't want to be memed. I'm gonna be memed, anyways.
Bruce Wayne's on a Sigma male grind set in this movie.
But
let
it
me
does
tell you.
feel like that. It feels like he doesn't really care for her in that degree.
yeah.
Because there's a shot where he's beating the hell out of somebody, and she looks at him like, "Whoa, what is wrong with you, dude?"
Yeah.
It's like we haven't had that interaction, at least on screen. I'm sure there's a comic in there somewhere where there's an interaction like that.
Tom
but
King's
as far
Batman's,
as on
yeah.
the screen, we haven't. If anything, it's been vice versa, where Selena Kyle is going too far, and Batman's like, "Yo, relax, lady. Like,
Yeah.
take a chill pill." And
Yeah.
to me, that's what I think I'm most excited for, is that dichotomy between the two and how they interact, and
Mm-hmm.
just a breath of fresh air in terms of those two.
Mm.
I'm really interested to see Riddler as a serial killer.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
Paul Dano, shout out Paul Dano. I don't know why I keep looking at the camera. Shout out Paul Dano.
Mhm. That is something that, now that you mention it,
It'll be interesting how they spin that.
So he's not going to be anything like Jim Carrey, I think.
No.
However,
Hopefully.
I'm interested to see, because the Riddler is notoriously like such a finicky character.
Yeah. He's like, almost like a gimmick, right?
Well, like he's a gimmick just because his thing is riddles.
Yeah.
But it's had so many, every single time he's appeared in the comics, he's been different every single time, because he's a staple character, but he's barely
There's no distinguishable characteristic about him.
there is. He's super smart, but he's difficult to write, because you have to write a super smart character, and you have to be smart yourself in order to write his riddles. So he barely shows up in the comics, and every time he does, he is different almost every single time. So this version of him, I don't know what they're gonna go for. It doesn't seem, in terms of like what they might be pulling from the comics. I don't know. I barely see any. I barely have seen the trailers at all, so I don't really know. What
You're
they're basing.
notorious for not watching.
Some of it
trailers.
feels like a little bit of freaking what's it called? I don't remember the writer, but Justice. The art was by Alex Ross. That version of Riddler, it feels a little bit like that kind of maniacal kind of guy. But yeah, I'm not talking to the mic.
No, not at all. It's okay. It'll pick up.
I'm doing it. Yeah.
It's called movie magic.
In my opinion. That being said, though, The Penguin also is going to appear,
it'll be
and he
interesting to
seems
see a
very different from
serious Penguin.
not Danny
Because he's more
DeVito.
serious.
We love Danny DeVito, but less comedic portrayal of that character. Although I do think Danny DeVito, he sells the tragic undertone, the tragic backstory of that character, like incredibly well.
Yeah.
He's so pathetic as the Penguin. So this more like mobster version of him is, I think, a lot closer to what the modern version of the Penguin is in the comics. Literally, Detective Comics, I think it was issue like 1057, or maybe it was 1058, and that was like last week. It had the Penguin on the cover, and the subtitle was "Feels Good to Be a Gangster."
Oh, jeez.
And I'm like, that's your movie tie-in right there. But the biggest thing for me is going to be the directing and the cinematography. From the trailer, that looks like the most interesting.
Who's the cinematographer on this?
Just the style. I want to see a much more stylized version. Everyone has been saying, "Oh, from the first shot, you're gonna know that this is a different kind of Batman movie." Like, what's that? What's that even mean? You can have a movie with an incredible opening shot and still be a terrible movie. Shout to
Greg Fraser.
Greg Fraser. Okay.
Dune, Rogue One, 0 Dark
Yep.
30, Vice, Mandalorian.
Yeah.
So there's a resume there.
Yeah.
There's an expectation, I should say.
Yeah.
Not a resume.
Mm-hmm. And I think we both said that Dune is at least close for winning best cinematography at the Oscars.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have liked his past movies, so I hope that he pulls out something very well. It looks like they're going for kind of a combination between the Tim Burton movies, the Art Deco, very stylized, and the more noir influenced Tom King Gotham from the comics.
Yeah.
It feels like they're doing a combination of that.
That's one thing I'm very excited to see is an actual detective story.
Yeah.
As much as I love all the Batman movies
Mm-hmm.
and maybe not love some of them,
They're not really. They don't tap into that film noir detective element.
Which there's hints of with like Nolan and like
Dark Knight is the most
the
obvious
Dark Knight
one.
where he's doing the forensic stuff, and then the Justice League where he's building the kryptonite.
Yeah.
But there's not like an actual whole almost chapter, I guess, for lack of a better word, dedicated to that in a movie.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be interesting to see that because he's trying to track down the Riddler.
Yeah.
So seeing that morph between a brawler and a sleuth will we'll see if Matt Reeves does it. He says he has. He says he's taken more inspiration from more detective driven comics. So we'll see. We'll see.
We
how
will
it goes.
see. We will see.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited. We both are. It'll be nice to see Gotham as an actual world. I think I've mentioned this every time we talk about this movie.
You have. For me, it'll just be interesting to see a young Bruce Wayne.
And also a young Bruce Wayne, right? Like we also mention that every time we talk about this movie.
Yeah.
Seeing a young Bruce Wayne in the early stages of his.
Yeah. Well, it should be said too that the comics, early Bruce Wayne, at least the people who have written him, Frank Miller and Jeff Loeb, those comics that those guys wrote, they were incredibly influenced by like hard-boiled detective stories. Like if you read Batman Year One, that is like a freaking Raymond Chandler. Like just the dialogue is almost on point like that. So definitely, I hope that it leans more in that direction, genre-wise.
Fingers crossed.
Or if I'm wrong, I just hope it's good.
It's getting good reviews so far.
Yeah, it's still a superhero movie, so it's not art.
Yeah.
Shout out to
It's not Spider-Man No Way Home, that's for sure.
Hold on. I was gonna say shout out to Scorsese, but yeah,
man.
never mind.
Cool. Any last words on Batman?
No,
We enjoyed some.
we've enjoyed some. We haven't enjoyed some.
I think, go listen to our review on Nolan. We did a whole podcast episode I think we did a whole podcast episode on just the Batmans, if I'm not, or no. There's like a whole trilogy of Nolan episodes where we talk about the movies.
Or
more
don't,
depth.
because the audio quality is gonna be terrible.
The audio quality is terrible. Anyways.
Should we re-record those? Just all 3 hours?
We'll just take the transcript and just
Yeah. Reread it.
verbatim what we said. Oh man, yeah, no, that's not happening. All right, we are out of here. That was Hit Play. Go watch The Batman. Tell us what you think, and we'll tell you what we think next week
When we have video.
as we stare into the camera. Sadly, as it died. Bye, children.